Good afternoon and welcome to Football League World TV. It's time for another fan debate here on the channel. We're going to be talking to Tom Chappell, massive Portsmouth fan and content creator, Fournilwrittenalloverit. If you haven't checked it out on YouTube, well worth watch. We're going to be discussing Portsmouth's January transfer window so far and what Tom would like to see Pompey do in the remaining days of the January transfer window. My name is Sam Rourke, Chief Editor of Football League World.co.uk. And Tom, how are you getting on this afternoon, mate?
I'm well, thank you, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So, Pompey fans, get yourself in the comments. We will discuss your comments live on the show. So, let's get straight into it. So, two signings so far for Portsmouth in this January transfer window, Tom. Let's chat about Tyler Walker first. He's arrived on loan until the end of the season from Coventry City. He actually started against AFC Wimbledon the other night alongside George Hurst. First and foremost, Tom, what have you made of the signing? Was the need for a new striker essential in this window?
Yeah, desperate, if I'm honest. It just wasn't really working with John Marquis. I think that's quite a well-known fact. I think it's one of the biggest departures of the window is John Marquis leaving us, and the necessity for someone like Tyler Walker to come in, a proven track record at this level. He's had a really impressive last League One season, and it's still, it's a decent championship record that he's got as well. Yeah, we're just hopeful that he can hit the ground running. Obviously, no goals in that game that you alluded to on Tuesday night. There wasn't an awful lot for him to do. To be honest, it's one of those that's just played in the middle of the park. What I did like to see was just kind of the reaction that he gave to Danny Cowley in his first interview with us, Tyler Walker. He was very complimentary of him. He said it was one of the major pull factors why he came to the football club. Another good thing, especially I think because it's the January transfer window, is he actually has a couple of connections with the current starting 11 that we have. So he knows Joe Morrell, Marcus Harness, who is at previous clubs with before, and he's played with Hursty as well. So we've got a couple of connections there, and that's really important for us at this sort of halfway point, that we can really hit the ground running and he can start banging some goals in, which is what unfortunately Marquis let us down on. He just wasn't scoring the goals. I think he scored 4 for us this season, which from a salient striker, your number 9 wants to be scoring more goals for Portsmouth Football Club in League One. So, yeah, we're hoping it's going to be really good. Obviously, that connection with Danny's important, and if he can get them in the back of the net and hopefully take our record goal scoring, because I said to you before we went live, we're doing really well defensively, but our goal scoring is just not there. So if he can contribute to that, then hopefully it will be one of the better signings that we will have made in recent times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fair to say that Tyler Walker's perhaps his best form has come in League One. Obviously, then 14 goals he scored with Lincoln City when he was under Danny Cowley. So, Portsmouth fans, let us know in the comments what do you think of the arrival of Tyler Walker? Are you hoping he can bang in the goals to get Pompey into the playoffs this season? Right, let's touch on another done deal next. To Pompey completed the signing of Hayden Carter on loan from Blackburn Rovers, a 22-year-old centre-back. He also featured in that AFC Wimbledon game in midweek. Tom, was the need for a centre-back again essential in this window?
It was, yeah. We spent a couple of games in the season. I remember Gillingham away, in that horrendous away end. We had to make do with a 3-man defensive line, which isn't really the way that Danny or the fans or the team perhaps really want to play their football. Our club captain, Clark Robertson, has been out injured for the majority of this season we've seen so far. He is now training back to match fitness, perhaps not, but definitely getting there. So that was a major blow. It was the opening handful of games of the season where we actually lost him. So since then, really, we have been light in that area. For me, I don't want to slate any of our players and come on here and be rude about players on too much, because they're Pompey players, are playing in blue and white and we love them all. But Kieran Freeman's not quite cut it for me this season as a defender so far, and that was a change that needed to be made. He cost us a few vital goals at the Valley, actually. In that 2-2 draw, you can kind of put him solely to blame for at least one of those. And there's a number of other examples I could give you where defensively we just haven't been bright enough. And I think Pompey fans and the admin described it as a defensive Carter class on Tuesday night with the introduction of him, and what a great first game he had, because he looked assured, he looked wise in the way he was playing, he did a lot for the team, he put in the blocks and challenges that we've been used to. We're such a, I don't want to say a star defender in Sean Raggett, but he is the most composed centre back that I can remember playing for Portsmouth Football Club in a good number of years. You have to go back to the real good old Premier League days when you could probably pinpoint a defender that's better than Sean Raggett. So yeah, hopefully, it looked like anyway on Tuesday night, having watched the game, Hayden Carter slotted nicely into that back line, which is something that you really need. As I say, again, in the midpoint of a January transfer window, it's important that sort of relationships can be built on quite a quick scale and quite a quick timeline, because ultimately we need to be assured defensively, and we are, and it means that Danny can either opt to go for that back three and have a wide midfield if he wants to, depending on what team plays us, rather than being confined to just playing a certain way because we don't have the personnel available. So it gives us options. He's also a great talent. I think he looks really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in a Pompey shirt this season for the remainder of the season. And I'm just hoping, you'll probably ask me later on, I'm just hoping that the next deal we potentially bring in is a permanent one and not a loan one. That's the only sort of grudge I'd have with both those two we've already spoken about. But yeah, quality signings, a pair of them, Hayden Carter with a defensive Carter class, and hopefully we can see a lot more of those in the coming matches.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some footage of him in that AFC Wimbledon game. Like you say, did look very assured, for such a young player as well. Really did seem to impress in that particular game. Just finally then on Hayden Carter, Tom, do you expect Ogilvie, Sean Raggett and Carter to be the kind of main back three now for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I do. I don't really see a way back into the side for Freeman. I think that's quite a nice combination. Connor Ogilvie's fantastic. I mean, he is. I mean, mainly the reason, other than Gavin Bazunu, who I would argue with anyone is the best keeper in League One and among one of the best keepers that we have playing football in this country at the moment. But that's mainly the reason, is that defensive crop of players that are the reason why we have the best clean sheet record in League One currently. And I'd like Hayden Carter to become among that, but also lead the line and lead the way on the example that Raggett and Ogilvie have set so far. And I think a three-man defensive line with those three, you've got the experience and the sort of the ruggedness of Sean Raggett. You've also got experience with Connor Ogilvie. He's very meticulous in the way he plays. And then the new, young, youthful Hayden Carter. I think it's an ideal three-pronged attack in defence, if that makes sense. So yeah, we'll hopefully he slots nicely. And I think that is the way forward for Pompey, is definitely that three-man back three, definitely.
Yeah, well, definitely an encouraging start from Hayden Carter in a Pompey shirt for sure. As ever, Portsmouth fans, get yourself in the comments. What do you make of the Hayden Carter edition? Are you pleased to see him through the doors at Fratton Park? Right, let's look at some departures next. Ellis Harrison moved to Fleetwood Town in this January transfer window. Really struggled for game time under the Cowleys this season. Do you feel like this was inevitable, Tom, to see Harrison moved on this window?
I think it was. He was confined to I think he was confined to a couple of cup appearances, and that was about it. He might have come on a couple of times late on in the stage of some of our League One games. Yeah, again, much like Marquis, for whatever reason, it didn't quite happen under Danny Cowley for Ellis Harrison. I know Danny's been public about that. Upon his departure, he mentioned that, what a fantastic character he was to have around the training ground, and how on the day that he left, it was a lot quieter around than it would have been had Ellis still been around with us. And I mean, that's so important, isn't it, to have characters like that on the training ground? But ultimately, is what's accomplished on the pitch and how it works for the team is one of the main things, isn't it? And I think that's what Danny's trying to achieve. So, yeah, I wasn't surprised by Ellis Harrison going. Since Danny and Nicky came in, it's never really sort of hit off with them. Again, another sort of player that they inherited from previous administration as well, which is never going to be ideal when you're not a top performing talent like Marcus Harness or Ronan Curtis. it can sometimes be quite difficult to get on the side of a manager to get them to play you week in, week out as they come in. Funnily enough, I'm sure you've seen it, Sam, but he scored on his debut and the only goal in the Doncaster game for Fleetwood Town. So we're wishing him all the best of luck, and hopefully he can go and score goals for the Cods, just not in the next game. I know he's still got to play them one more time, so hopefully he doesn't score on that night. But yeah, best of luck to Ellis, and for whatever reason, it just didn't quite work out under Danny.
Yeah, absolutely. Another striker departed Fratton Park in this window, a certain John Marquise. He left to join Danny Cowley's former side, Lincoln City, on a contract until the end of the season. Only 4 goals for Marquise this season in League One. Seemed to be a player that kind of divided opinion for a number of seasons down in Portsmouth. Again, similar question to what I asked you about Ellis Harrison. Was this an inevitable deal, do you feel, in this window?
Yeah, I think so. It's really unfortunate because when we brought in Marquis and Harrison, I think it's going on 3 years ago now into this Pompey setup, we bought them for in the region of a sort of between them is about £1.5 million, £2 million. And, you know, I'm led to believe that Marquis left us on a free to go to Lincoln. So you just think how much that's depreciated over time for us. It was getting to the stage where we were splitting fan bases, and I'll give you an example. Cambridge away, first away game of the season, first away game of 2022, this calendar year. When the players are warming up, they're taking their striking against the makeshift goal that gets put up for the warm up, and then they take it away for the actual game. The rest of the boys were just booting them in, top bins, bottom left, whatever. Every time Marcus had a shot, we're all going, oh, kind of taking the mick a little bit, and that sort of demonstrates to you that he's not really invested with the fans anymore. Such a hard-working guy. He's got a proven track record at this level. He's a natural striker, isn't he? It's difficult to pinpoint. Some people have labelled it the occasion of Fratton Park and John Marquis, and how because he hasn't quite come off in the last couple of years, it just makes it even more difficult for him to find his form and find his feet again. It was a case of John Marquis was playing. If you think about it, he scored 4 goals in 24, 25 appearances for Pompey this season. So that's a goal every 6 games. It's not good enough from a striking point of view, really. And there was a point where he'd score a goal and then we go, right, his form's back. Brilliant. Let's crack on. And then it'd be another 4 or 5 games of score. He scores his next one and then he'd get 2 and then he'd go quiet. So it's something that needed to change. Yes, it was inevitable, Sam. Again, it's the same story of Ellis Harrison. You never want it to happen. But I don't actually think that when he comes back to play for Lincoln at Fratton Park this season, because we've already been up there on a Tuesday already this season, so it'll be the home leg. I don't actually think he will score, to be honest with you. I know that's always the way that it happens, that it happened with us for Michael Smith. He's now tearing it up at Rotherham United. He was awful in a Pompey shirt. I just don't see Marquis scoring because he hasn't looked like scoring properly for the whole season. But I may be wrong, and it might all work out nicely for him at Lincoln, and he might go on to have a really good second half of the season. And I really hope he does. I would imagine a good word from Danny's been put in, obviously former Lincoln boss, and I would imagine he's still got friends in recruitment, or he's still got friends who are in the high echelons of the football club there. So would have put a good work in, say, look, if you want a goal scorer who's going to work hard for the team, then this is the guy you want. And I would have thought then maybe a couple of strings have been pulled there. But it's nice for him to have a home to play football in and hopefully be successful. And we wish him every luck for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like he needed a fresh start somewhere. It seemed stagnating near the end of his time at Portsmouth. Pompey fans, as ever, get yourself in the comments. What do you make of John Marquis's departure to Lincoln City? Was it the right decision by the club? Another departure, this time on loan. Paul Downing has been loaned out to Rochdale. Again, a player not necessarily fancied by the Cowleys during their time at Fratton Park. Tom, again, what do you make of this particular deal? Does it make sense to loan out Downing?
I think it does. Yeah, it's another one where we've freed up a space for another player to come in and do the job that Downing was doing. And as we've said already, these players were players that weren't getting match time under Danny Cowley. Paul Downing's definitely one of them. I actually quite liked Paul Downing. I thought he was I thought he was fantastic, actually, and I'm surprised that he didn't play an awful lot under Danny and Nicky, because he was one of those where he came on, he thought, oh, Downey's coming on, that will give us a bit of new ideas, bit of fresh legs, whatever. Yeah, there's not an awful lot for me more to say about Downing, to be honest. We never really got to see him under Danny and Nicky, which is a shame, because I think he was a good player that we could have made an awful lot more of. But you look in his position now and you think we have covered ourselves and more with the talent that we've brought in since Danny and Nicky have been in charge. So there just wasn't really the room for him in the setup anymore, and that's quite often what a loan move out in January signifies, doesn't it? That they're not quite getting the game time that they're after as a player, and the manager's not quite feeling it from their point of view either. So that's definitely the case of Paul Downing. Again, I think he'll have a successful end of the season wherever he goes. I think Rochdale's the right fit for him. Yeah, I just think he's one that we never got to see enough of, which is a shame. But there we go. Football in it, Sam.
Yeah, it sounds like a deal that suits all parties, that
Yeah.
particular one involving Paul Downing. Right, let's look at some rumours next. Latest transfer rumour kind of emerging from Fratton Park over the last few days is that they are interested in Sunderland left back Denver Hume. Danny Cowley's made it very clear that he wants to add down the left-hand side of his Portsmouth team, and Denver Hume is someone that has been identified as a potential transfer target. Not playing much at Sunderland right now. Dennis Serkin's been the main man down the left-hand side for Lee Johnson's Sunderland, but Denver Hume could be someone that we see move to Pompey in this particular window. Tom, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of come about in the last couple of days, and we actually make the trip to Sunderland this weekend to play them at the Stadium of Light. So it's odd how these rumours come around. I had a little look on sort of Sunderland Twitter pages and whatever, people discussing it, because that's always what you like to do when the opposition is got a player that your team are interested in. And there were quite a few messages that said, "Oh, I'll chip in for his taxi down," or "Oh, we'll drive him there ourselves," which is never a great thing to see when you're an opposition fan of a player that's coming down to potentially playing your team. I don't know how close the deal is, Sam. You probably know more than I do on that one. But all I can say is that he looks like something that would be a vital addition. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If the transfer window had ended with the additions that we brought in the last week or so, well, coming up to, when was the last one? Monday, Tuesday. I would have probably been content, because we cleared out the deadwood that wasn't working for the team. We replenished it with talents that could. Anything from me now moving forward, I know Danny still wants to add one or two, and Denver Hume is one that we've been discussing and that he's been obviously looking into. But anything from me is an added bonus from this point on. And if Denver Hume is the man that makes up that final one or two places for Danny Cowley, then I think we'll wish him every success at Pompey, and hopefully that it goes really well for him. And if Danny can see it, and massively, every Pompey fan, well, there might not be every, but I'd say a vast majority of Pompey fans are incredibly trusting of Danny Cowley's point of view and perspective on things. And so if he thinks that he can fit into his side nicely, then Denver Hume would be a welcome addition at Portsmouth. Again, it's really important that he fits in nice and quickly with the players, because it's a fast-paced team. One of the highest pressing teams up and down the four leagues. So it is quite an adaptation, I should say. Although we're trying to achieve similar to what Sunderland are. So although he's not been playing an awful lot of games, Denver Hume, maybe the fact that he's been at a club of similar ebb, similar thing about them that is really important. Similar philosophy, similar morals in terms of getting out of League One and into the Championship. And if he's been around those players at Sunderland, then I don't think the shift will be too drastic for him at Pompey. Again, it's a deal that I'd like to see happen. I'd like to see any deal happen that looks potential and that Danny's interested in and thinks can add to this Pompey side. We'll just have to wait and see and see what the next couple of days and weeks brings. I don't know how. Well, it's not an awful lot longer now, is it? Probably 10, 11 days or so until the end of the window. So we'll see what the next week or so brings.
Yeah, say just finally then on this Denver Hume interest, say the deal does materialise, he arrives at Fratton Park. Is he someone that you could see ousting Lee Brown from that kind of left back role? Because, I mean, more often than not, we've seen Lee Brown operate down the left. Would you see him ousting him or not? Not just yet.
Yeah, we've seen Lee Brown sort of fall a little bit out of favour somewhat in the last couple of weeks, which may be a bit of an inkling as to what Danny Cowley's intentions are, and maybe he's clearing a bit of space in the side for Denver Hume without even getting him in yet. That might be a tactic that he's employing. Yeah, Lee Brown's great. He's a bloke with an awful lot of character about him, and you can tell how important he is to that Pompey dressing room. But he is slow and he is getting on a bit, and he's a veteran at this level. He knows what it's about. If you've got a pacey winger for the opposition team, he's going to get done for pace every single time they make a run down his side. So maybe that's something that does need to be addressed. It's likewise with Sean Williams. Whenever Sean Williams is tracking a runner for us, he's again, it's an experienced midfielder for us. We always do tend to lose them for pace, and that's a bit. Although you bring the experience, you do detract from what you bring in experience with pace and physicality and the fitness that you really need for this really dogged and tough division. So if Denver Hume can bring that in place of Lee Brown, I would be all for it. But again, I mean, we've managed in the last couple of weeks. I know we haven't quite got back to the heights that we were talking about before we went live of a really decent run up to Christmas, and then post-COVID break that we had an enforced break of a good 20 odd days of no football for Pompey. We haven't really got going, so Denver Hume would be nice to add to that. And if Lee Brown needs to make way and just be that substitute and be in the dressing room, rallying the boys on, then I think that's probably the right thing to happen. Sorry.
Okay. Let's just briefly touch on one of Pompey's most prized assets right now, Marcus Harness. He has been attracting interest from several sides in the second tier. This kind of interest emerged a few weeks ago, but it has gone a little bit quiet in recent days. Marcus Harness, 9 goals this season for Pompey. He's been a shining light, hasn't he, for Danny Cowley's side. Do you firmly expect to keep hold of him in this window? Because you never know, a late bid could come in from a championship side. What are you kind of expecting with Harness?
Yeah, late bid could come in. I think we would probably do absolutely everything we can to turn it down and keep Marcus on the South Coast with us. You're quite right, and you say one of Danny's prized assets. I'd probably go as far to say he is our most prized asset in an attacking sense. Could probably throw Curtis into the mix with that, but I think Harness brings a different level that is beyond this standard of football. That is just, you have to be there to witness how much quality he has. And it happens every window, Sam, that we get a rumor that Marcus Harness is off out somewhere, and it, the club and the board and the Eisners and Andrew Cullen as our CEO do absolutely everything they can to keep hold of him. But again, it's a football's a business, isn't it? More than anything. So if a number was sprung out of nowhere from a club that can afford to take him on and play him regularly week in, week out, then I think we would have to accept. My only thing with that would be that if he does go, a suitable replacement would either need to be in the pipeline or sort of ready to go, much like it was actually when, I know it's a smaller scale, but when Marquis left us to go to Lincoln, there were already sort of rumours that Carl, that Walker would be coming into us to sort of like a one-off, one-ons sort of thing, and I'd like that to be the case of Harness. I don't actually see it happening. As you say, rumours have died down in the last couple of days, but stranger things have happened. People come in last minute, deadline day. The other thing I would say is, this is a transfer show. We actually have a game on the final day of the transfer window. Yeah. So I think Danny's already made it quite clear that we have sort of, if you take 6 hours away from that transfer window, and maybe say ours probably closes at 4:00 in the afternoon before preparation for Charlton Athletic at home begins. So we do have I wouldn't have thought a late sort of 10:30, 11 o'clock bid would be made for anyone for Pompey. It's never normally the case for us anyway these days. So yeah, I'd really like to see Harness stay with us. I think he loves it down here. Yeah, you can see by the way he plays his football that he's got a love for this football club, and And I think he wants to see us achieve what we want to achieve. And he's been here for quite a few seasons now, and he has been part of the sort of the real core of the side that, despite clearing out Watmore and Naylor, which for me was a mistake in the last window, they're now ripping it up for Wigan Athletic and having a fantastic season, and will probably end up playing Championship football next season. Marcus Harness has been a stalwart, and he's remained with us through thick and thin, through Kenny Jackett. He was playing week in, week out, and now Danny Cowley plays in, week out as well. So, and he's never injured either, which is, ideal. So yeah, we're a lot of love for Marcus Harness, and hopefully he stays. You say fingers crossed, but literally that would be curtains for us if he went and we couldn't bring anyone in. So yeah, massively hopeful on Harness to stay, and hopefully he can have a successful second half of the season with us, and we'll have to see where that takes us.
Yeah, I think the majority of the Portsmouth fan base would agree with your sentiments there for sure. Right, I'm going to ask you one more question on this show next. You have somewhat already answered some of this question already in this show, but I'm just going to relay it again. Is there anything else needed then for Portsmouth in this January transfer window? If you were in charge of the transfers at Fratton Park, who would you be bringing in? What sort of positions would you like to strengthen in?
There's one more that Pompey fans watching this will probably go, here we go again. But Ben Thompson came on loan to us a little while ago now. Actually, it was a couple of seasons ago, and he was absolutely superb. And we felt like he was recalled far too early back to Millwall. I happened to bump into him at Gillingham away. I don't know why I've managed to mention Gillingham away on two separate occasions in this show, but there we are. And I did have a bit of a conversation with him, and he's looking for a move, whether that's kind of Pompey fans, really getting themselves up about a great player that we had a couple of years ago, or whether it is something that Danny Cowley would see in his plans. For me, it's a no-brainer because he's had previous experience at this football club. The fan base absolutely adore him, and he would fit really nicely into Sean Williams's position right now, which is, if I was going to be really picky of this Pompey side, which I'm really, really happy with at the moment, I would say that Sean Williams is perhaps our weakest link, although he provides that wise head on shoulders, and he can keep level-headed when we see flashpoints in the game, because we know Curtis has got a fiery nature to him, and Harness can as well. He does jiu-jitsu in his spare time, so he's got that going for us. But we would really, really benefit, in my point of view, from him dropping Williams to the bench and bringing in someone like Ben Thompson, who can play in that midfield role alongside Joe Morrell or Ryan Tunnicliffe. To be honest, those two sitting midfielders we're really pleased to say that we've got, and we're lucky that we've got such a prized midfield area at the moment. But if Ben Thompson was in that side, I think that would complete us, and it would mean the charge into May time would really make things special for us. And if we manage to sneak into one of those playoff positions with a squad that has Ben Thompson in it and has also the assets that we've brought in over the last week or so, then I think we're in for a really exciting ride come the last couple of months of the season.
There we go. Danny Cowley, if you're listening, Tom Chappell has called out Ben Thompson as someone he'd like to see arrive down at Fratton Park for a second time. Well, that's all we got time for on today's fan debate, Portsmouth fan debate. Tom, thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. Where can Portsmouth fans find all of your content?
On YouTube, mate, primarily. Fournilwrittenalloverit, home and away. I'll be, not today, but tomorrow this time in the afternoon, I'll be heading up to Sunderland. So look out for that one. But yeah, just on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of thing. But thank you very much for having me on, mate. And hopefully my predictions on Ben Thompson will come true. We'll have to keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Please do check out Tom's channel on YouTube. It is a really, really good vlogging channel for sure. We've got two more shows on Football League World TV this afternoon. We've got a Luton Town fan debate. We're going to be talking about the Hatters' January transfer window. And then at 7 o'clock tonight, we're going to be looking at Stoke City's January transfer window. So well worth tuning in for. If you're watching this on repeat on YouTube, please do stick a like in on the video and subscribe if you are new. We do appreciate all the new subscribers here at Football League World TV. But from myself and Tom, we shall see you soon.